Buddham sharanam gacchami.
Buddham sharanam gacchami.
Buddham sharanam gacchami. Dhammam sharanam gacchami.
Dhammam sharanam gacchami.
Dhammam sharanam gacchami. Sangham sharanam gacchami.
Sangham sharanam gacchami.
Sangham sharanam gacchami. Buddham sharanam gacchami. Dhammam sharanam gacchami. Sangham sharanam gacchami.
Buddham sharanam gacchami. Dhammam sharanam gacchami. Sangham sharanam gacchami. Buddham sharanam gacchami. Dhammam sharanam gacchami. Sangham sharanam gacchami.
La dan la me je benji shagye pe mo la du Pumba kun le do ze ma do ma yum la cha ze lo om dare tu re so ha om dare tu re so ha om dare tu re so om dare tu re so ha 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 om dare tu re so om dare tu re so ha 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 om dare tu re so dare du 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 dare du re so 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 ha ge wan di nyu do da pa ma do ma tu je na do wa chi ya ma le ba ti ye sa la go ba ra sho Tashi Delek, everyone. So I will straight away go to the text. Verse number 108. One should not contemplate what the kinsmen of the sun declare to be the 14 unexpounded views, for the mind will not be pacified through them. So this means, this is really talking about the 14 unanswered questions. When Buddha was asked 14 questions, he did not answer. Kinsman of the sun means Buddha. Buddha did not expound, did not answer. Because answering such questions will not bring peace or not lead to achievement of peace, which means not lead to achievement of nirvana. Because the purpose, as I repeatedly mentioned earlier, the purpose of Buddha's teaching, the focus of Buddha's teaching is to alleviate, reduce, and remove suffering. He's not so interested in metaphysical questions in general. Okay. I have explained earlier the example of the person shot by arrow, poisoned arrow. So recall that metaphysical questions are not always useful. That's one reason. The second reason that he didn't answer is because these 14 questions are said to be asked by Tirthikas, non-Buddhist teachers, who already believed the self and other things as having inherent independent existence, which is not accepted by Buddhists, especially the Madhyamika philosophy. So when the basis of their question itself is non-existent, there's no point answering any question related to that question. So therefore, and straight away, if you say, okay, the way you are accepting things are also wrong, that is a little bit not polite. So on many times it is always best not to answer when the question is, of such nature that it is not going to help you or help others. So this also gives us a very good example that sometimes silence is the best answer. There are people who say, because Buddha did not answer these 14 questions, they say, oh, Buddha is not omniscient because he could not answer these 14 questions. But from the Buddhist viewpoint, especially what is said in Nagarjuna's Rishas Garland, Ratnavali, he says the fact that he did not answer those things which is not necessary to answer shows that he is a skillful, omniscient person. Because those of us who don't know, we try to answer everything as if we know everything, right? So therefore, many a times, the best answer is silence, many a times. It's not just trying to prove that you know everything. Of course, nobody knows everything, right? So many a times, silence is the best. Then also from the Buddhist viewpoint also, there are many ways of answering. For example, 4 ways of answering a question is taught in the Buddhist philosophy. One is, if somebody asks you a question, then you just don't try to give a lengthy answer, but just give a hint so that that person will gradually be able to reflect on it. So that's one way of answering. And the second way of answering is analyzing their question in minute detail, then answering that question. Third way of answering is questioning the question. That person asks you the question, and instead of giving a straight way answer, you also question to that person. That itself will become an answer. And the fourth answer is, as is being said here, remaining silent, not to answer. So the 14 questions that is being asked are whether the self and the universe are eternal, not eternal, both eternal, not eternal, and neither eternal nor non-eternal, right? So eternal, not eternal, both, neither. Likewise, with the self and the universe, whether it is finite, infinite, both, or neither. So that makes it 8 questions. Then the third batch is whether the I, self, or of a Buddha continue to exist after death, not continue after death, both, or neither. Then the last 2 is whether the body and the life source, life force, body and the life force, whether they are of same entity or totally separate and different entities. So these questions were asked, and Buddha did not answer these questions. So the main thing that we need to know is, for ordinary people like us, and based on my own small experience, as and you grow older and older, you start realizing that there's not much time to indulge in so many things, right? There's so many things that's available on the internet, in the books, Forget one lifetime. Many lifetimes will be not enough to read all these books. And it's also not necessary to read all these books. Because we have obtained this precious human life, it is unsure how long we are going to live. Therefore, it is really, really important to be very selective. As Shantideva said right in the beginning of his entering the Bodhisattva way of life, that life is short. There are too many things to know, and we do not know the actual span of our life. So therefore, just as the swans extract milk from water, take that which is necessary. Making perfect choice is the key thing. That's really, 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 really important. As I said, based on my small experience, for example, after this, we are talking about 12 links of dependent origination. Spend some time, just read all the materials available on 12 links of dependent origination, and become sort of, if not perfectly like well versed, but at least just get a good idea or sketch of this 12 links of dependent origination. Or if you are studying on impermanence, just get grounded on the meaning of impermanence, about the grosser level of impermanence, about the subtle level of impermanence. Why did Buddha taught impermanence right at the beginning, related to our own life, how everything is in a flux, how everything is changing momentarily, second by second, waiting for nobody. So like that, spend some time with one-pointed concentration, especially analytical meditation. And once you get a very good grasp of the meaning of, say, impermanence, that will really shake you up. Really shake you up. And then hopefully you will be able to develop some strong conviction. Then meditation will come automatically. If it is not there, even your understanding at the level of listening is not enough, then that will not shake you up. When we do spiritual practice, we must do it in such a way so that some changes happen in our mind, in our life. Otherwise, it will be like any other, reading any other story. I told you this story of a herdsman counting the sheep and cow and things like that. So he was a servant of somebody rich. So every morning and evening, he used to count the number of those sheep. And somebody who is not familiar with this person said, you seem to be very rich. You own all these sheep. And he said, no, I don't have even a single sheep. I'm servant. So like that, he's counting all the sheep every day, but didn't have only even one sheep. So like that, we also keep on counting impermanence, bodhicitta, conventional bodhicitta, ultimate bodhicitta, things like that, three kayas and things like that. Then if somebody asks you, which of these things that you have counted you have? I said, and you, I have nothing, right? So getting these knowledges, qualities stuck in the mind takes time, because we are very strongly stuck in the quagmire of negative habits, difficult to pull out, right? So therefore we need to really, one very good technique for me at least is spend some time, at least few hours or whatever, on one topic and try to understand that more or less properly. right? So that will then generate some kind of happiness, delight in you, because you are now able to sense the meaning of that teaching, that topic. And that will help you understand other topics also much easier, because they're all closely connected, related to other, right? So like understanding of impermanence, selflessness, and even with the meaning of selflessness, how this is interpreted in the 4 different schools. So there's a systematic process of proceeding through the spiritual practice, right? So that's important. Okay. So therefore, the point that he has made here is that your focus should be how to reduce your suffering, or how should you help others reduce their suffering. Now, to do that, not only read book, but you should really think whether you have any suffering or not. When you explore in that way, you might find that, oh, I don't have any physical ache, so I have no suffering. That will be our first kind of understanding, because when we talk about understanding of suffering, we only have a very superficial understanding of suffering, a little bit of understanding of suffering. Understanding of suffering of change is not there, right? So therefore, you look for a new house, you look for new friends, thinking that if I get this new house, if I get this new friend, if I get this new car, I will be happier. Yes, to some extent, for a few days you will be happier. There will be some satisfaction. Then again, that situation will again reveal its true color, telling you that I am not the source of your long-lasting happiness. So once you understand that, then whichever place you stay, whatever friends you associate with love, with compassion, you will also have this understanding. Yes, right now we are friends, but he's not going to live forever. I'm not going to live forever. Right now, this place is okay, but it might change. Right now, the weather is good, but it might change. So you're mentally ready to get yourself adapted to that changing situation without any problem. When you don't have that kind of understanding, then you feel that that particular friend, that particular house, that particular thing is your source of permanent, unchanging happiness, which is, of course, not true. And when that true color is revealed, then you get shocked. How come, he cheated me? How come he cheated me? Or in other words, not just cheating, how come he died? That is what we say. God is not fair that he died so young. It's nothing to do with God. It's the law of nature. Law of nature. Right? So therefore, not just reading the book, get the lesson from the teacher, from the book, then use your own intelligence, brain, to explore and find the truth by yourself. Then you will be able to get that conviction of the truth of those teachings and the purpose of understanding those teachings and the usefulness of those teachings. As during the pandemic, we got some glimpse of the truth of these teachings. Because when everything else fails, you will be compelled to turn within yourself. There's no other refuge. So when on the day when you have to do that, if you're inside, if you're completely empty, without any of these resources of compassion, of love, of patience, understanding of dependent origination, things like that, then the only thing that you will have is helplessness. So therefore, right from the beginning, we must take care of these precious teachings. the real inner wealth, wealth of faith, the wealth of sense of shame, sense of concern for others. These are real treasure. And especially with this teaching on dependent origination, it's repeatedly said this is the heart of the Buddha's teaching. This is the treasure of the Buddha's teaching. Right? So therefore, the next verse that we are going to study is on how to adopt this understanding of dual links of dependent origination on the spiritual path. A very deep understanding of that might take a long time, but just to get a very superficial or get a rough idea, it's not so difficult. Right? So therefore, the next verse says, I'll read 3 verses together. The Muni means the Buddha, the able one, the one who conquered his negative emotions. The Muni declared that from ignorance arises karma, from that consciousness, and from that name and form, and from that the 6 faculties, and from them contact. From contact arises sensation. Based on sensation comes about craving. From craving originates grasping. From that existence, and from existence comes birth. When there is a birth, there arises grief, sickness, aging, and destitution, the fear of death, and so on, a huge mass of suffering. By stopping birth, all this will cease. So it's quite clear. It's basically saying, if you don't want any suffering, then don't take birth. Right? So birth, taking birth. When we talk about forced suffering, we talk about suffering of birth, suffering of aging, suffering of death, suffering of sickness. But normally, ordinarily, we don't talk much about suffering of birth. Instead, we celebrate it, happy birthday, right? So that's where we go wrong. Because this birth itself is the cause for aging, cause for death, cause for sickness. If you're not born, all these other issues will not arise at all. So if genuinely, if you want long-lasting happiness, then you need to, make an effort not to take this ordinary kind of birth, which is propelled by negative emotions and contaminated actions. It's not like the birth of a Buddha, which is projected by compassion and wisdom, right? So there is a way, there is a means to, if possible, not to have to take birth in samsara at all. If not possible, at least take birth in a higher stage. So luckily, although we have a lot of suffering, but today we are born as a human being, which is said to be, we call it precious human life, precious human being. Precious because of our mental capacity, not because we are physically much abler or agile than other animals. There are many other animals and birds who are much agile and much more flexible. I can't jump around like monkey from tree to tree, things like that. I cannot fly like birds. But it is because of human intelligence that we are able to invent things with the help of which we can fly like birds or swim like fish and things like that. So it is primarily because of human intelligence. Now this intelligence itself is an energy, a power. It can be used negatively, destructively, and it can also be used constructively, positively. So it really makes sense that we must use this human intelligence constructively, which basically means leading a life, adopting a way of thinking, which will bring happiness in you and which will help cultivate happiness and peace in the minds of others. And if you're able to do that, what else you want? If you're able to make other people smile and happy, what else you want? You see? Provided if you have some sense of love and compassion for other people and concern for their suffering, then it will be amazing to see other people getting happy through your physical, mental, and verbal deeds. It's a golden opportunity. Golden opportunity. We all have to serve others. So many different ways. Even in just one day, even in just 1 hour. Because we don't live in isolation. We live with other people. Right? So if you a little bit remain alert and aware and watchful and develop some sense of restraint over your physical, verbal, and mental actions, you will be able to help many people in so many ways. You know, in samsara, we say all sentient beings are wandering in the samsara. Wandering means wandering aimlessly. That's what is said in the text. But you do not have to go word by word what has been said in the text. Just look around. For example, if you are in a big city like Calcutta or Delhi, people are just moving. The whole day people are running up, running down on foot, in cars, you know, in trains and so forth. People are just, it's amazing to see, you know, how much running these people are doing. And running for what? They will say for this purpose, that purpose, and things like that. But at the end of the day, they are running in pursuit of a little bit of peace, a little bit of happiness. But of course, unfortunately, with an ignorant mind. So therefore, even though they want happiness, they don't get it because they are running in the wrong direction. Now, those of us who have some understanding of the Buddha's teaching, we know at least we have some sense, some idea of what is right direction, what is wrong direction. So because of this knowledge, even if it is a little bit, because of this knowledge, we have the capacity to guide and help many other people. Many other people. So we have the capacity. And I strongly believe those of you who are right now participating in this teaching, not only you have some understanding of Buddhism, but you are also, I think most of you are highly educated, even in the modern sense of the term. So because of this special education, be it the Buddhist education or any other education, you are in a privileged position. You have the capacity to help others, to contribute towards bring about a change in the society, which is a little bit urgent, given the thick ignorance which is clouding people's mind everywhere. And then plus the seduction, you know, provided the modern material, marvels of modern material. People are just like zombies, you know, running around and chasing this, chasing that, endlessly, you know. हम लोग हिंदी में बोलते हैं ना खोखला दिमाग लेकर के घूम रहा है इधर उधर दौड़ रहा है बेचारा, right? And you are able to see that now because of your study, your background. So you can, in many different ways, you can help other people change their way of life, change their attitude, especially younger generation. So through that way, we should hope and expect that at least the future generation will be able to lead a happier life, more peaceful life, more harmonious life, other than the world that we have today. Unfortunately, today, the so-called powerful nations are, you know, running this race in the war. Who is the greatest, most powerful weapon to destroy others? Right? Demilitarization is out of sight. Everybody, every day is trying to use the latest technology to kill others. I mean, you can see that amount of insanity, killing each other for the sake of killing each other. Right? So therefore, it is high time that we should focus more on soft power than the hard power, the power of military, the power of arms, which is the way of wild animals ready to pounce upon each other. We are human beings with this great intelligence. Use that and cultivate that culture, that civilization which is related to inner development, right? So for this, the teachings of Buddha are not only relevant, but they are perennial teachings and will be useful forever, like medicine for the body, medicine to help you recover from illness. We are right now suffering from many mental kind of illnesses, countless. In Buddhist teachings, we talk about 84,000 classes of sicknesses or illnesses. The modern psychologists also talk about so many, depression, loneliness, low self-esteem. I don't know all the names. There's so many. And all this unruly states of mind can be tamed, can be controlled, can be pacified with right understanding, with the wisdom, with the compassion, especially the wisdom that sees the interconnected reality. So therefore, in these verses, he says that the Muni declared that from ignorance arises karma. So that means, now look at our state. The countless negative deeds that we do and the running that we are doing today is primarily propelled by ignorance. Okay, please don't get offended if you have been thinking that you are a very educated person. Then suddenly you come across this phrase saying that we are all ignorant. Don't get offended, but instead, analyze the meaning of ignorance. Ignorance is of two types. First is the mere lack of knowledge, as we normally understand. For an innocent child, also we say he is ignorant. Don't mind about his or her wrongdoings. That's one level of ignorance. Another level of ignorance is called misconception of reality. Some translators have translated it as ignorance through imagination. Some translated it as philosophical ignorance. because human mind is very inventive and clever. So everybody comes up with their own kind of philosophy. But it is not necessary that all the philosophical teachings are right. Right? They may be wrong. So in order to prove this, let me cite some verses from a text from a Sutta, where there is this very interesting story of two gentlemen, Vasitha and Bharadvaja, who were all like strolling along the road and disputing. They had a dispute between them concerning the right and the wrong paths. What is right? So Vasitha comes up with his own explanation based on his own teaching, the teaching of his own teacher Brahman, Okarashi. Then he says, this is the direct path, this is the straight path that leads to salvation and leads one who follows it to communion with God. Then the other fellow, the other scholar, Bharadvaja, following his famous teacher, Brahman Tarukha, also comes with the statement which is different from the other one, but still saying that this is the direct path, this is the straight path, and leads to salvation, and leads one who follows it to communion with God. So they had a lot of argument. Then finally they decided that we should consult this to Buddha, the Gautama, who was already quite famous at the time, and he was staying somewhere in the one side of the village. This is a long, beautiful story, long story. So this discussion led to the main question of following a path leading to communion with God. So there the Buddha answers by saying that although there are many religions who talk about God, have you seen any teacher who had a face-to-face encounter with the Buddha, with the God? Then both the scholars say no. Okay, not in this generation, but have you heard about, like, say, if we go back to 7 generations, within these 7 generations, have you heard about any famous teacher who had direct face-to-face encounter with the God? Both of them said no. So this is a very like many pages story. I'm trying to like shorten it. Then Buddha finally kind of says, so Buddha says, so Vasitha, there is not a single religious authority, teacher of religious authorities, or teacher of those teachers going back 7 generations who has seen God face to face. Nor did the ancient visionaries, the past teachers, declare, we know, we see where, how, and when God appears. So those religious authorities versed in traditions are saying, although they have not met the God face to face, but they are saying that path which we neither know nor have seen, we declare to be the path to union. And saying this is the direct path, this is the straight path that leads to salvation and leads to communion with the God. And then he says, this being the case, doesn't the talk of those religious authorities turn out to be ridiculous? This is a very interesting read. So, to make a long story short, they also tell these 2 scholars, is for example, let us say that there is a God. Then the God that you are talking about, is that God corrupt? The scholars say no. Are the teachers who give the teaching, are they corrupt? They say yes. So one by one, he counts many qualities which should be there with the God, but which is not there with the teachers who talk about the God. So in the end, the Buddha says that unless you remove your attachment to the sensual objects, unless you remove the obstructive mental defilements, neither you will be able to have a communion with the God or whatever, nor you will be able to help others. So the most important thing is that you should purify yourself with these negative emotions, the defilements. So that's why the Buddha repeatedly said that I've shown you the path to nirvana. Nirvana is up to you. We have to purify. Right? Therefore, what I was saying was, here we should clearly understand the 2 types of ignorance: mere lack of knowledge and misconception of reality. So through thinking, listening, and meditation, we should reduce our lack of knowledge, ignorance. and more importantly, misconception, which comes through studying wrong literatures, wrong texts, wrong teachings, following wrong teachers. We have to be very careful. Don't be gullible. You're also a human being. You have the capacity to judge. Don't run where everybody is running. Therefore, Buddha talk about the four reliances. Rely more on the meaning than on the beauty of the words. When it comes to understanding the meaning, first rely more on the teaching than on the teacher. With the teaching, rely more on the meaning than on the words. With the meaning, rely more on the definitive interpretation than on the interpretative interpretation of the teaching. Then with the definitive meaning, rely more on the primordial wisdom, which realizes it, than the grosser level of the mind, which realizes it. So there is a systematic process. So remove many of these ignorances about law of nature. That's why we talk about suffering, impermanence, dependent origination. Study all of them philosophically with a questioning mind based on the Buddha's teaching or philosophy from other traditions, and use your own brain. Understand the law of nature. The more and more I see some of these extremely notorious leaders in the world, the more and more I pay respect to the law of nature. In Buddhism, we call it law of karma, basically law of nature, because nobody can fight against law of nature. Nobody can change impermanence. Nobody can change death. Right? So this extremely notorious leaders who don't hesitate killing millions will also have to go. It's only a question of time. That's for me very comforting. Otherwise, these people are not going to listen to anybody. They think they're not going to die. They think they can do anything they like. But they can't. It's only for a short time. So you can cheat police. You can cheat other people, but you can never cheat law of nature. You can never cheat law of karma. If you are somebody who is really good in cheating the law of karma, then try. Make impermanent permanent. Make suffering as complete happiness. Things like that. Try to do that. You will never be able to do that. Doesn't really matter. The best medicine is at your disposal. The best physician is at your disposal. They may be able to help you remain healthy for some time, but they will never be able to make you live forever. So there is in that sense justice which will prevail. And for me, that is also a big hope. So therefore, it is really important for us to understand the law of nature, how it functions, and live our life in accordance with the law of nature. Now, law of nature, simply said, take this example with our present world. The law of nature is that we will flourish only if we all live harmoniously and help each other. As simple as that. There's no need to talk big. This is not what we think ordinarily. What we ordinarily think is, everything should be for me. Others should go to hell. Or at least you don't bother. There's the problem. There's the problem. So therefore, the very purpose of understanding this dependent origination is whether it's your relation to other people, whether it's your relation to the environment, whether it's a relation among the four elements functioning within your own body, whether it's the relation between your hand and a leg, your head and foot. They're inextricably linked together. Web, that's why we use the web of interdependent origination. internet of interdependent origination. Here we use the link, dual links of dependent origination. There, link means connected, contact, communication with each other. Nothing can function in vacuum, irrespective of other things. So, number one, you need to know that ignorance means, which is the root cause of samsara, ignorance means misconception of reality. Reality is that everything is interconnected. But that doesn't come in our mind. We think everything has independent existence. If you don't believe me, you can take an example. For example, take the example of somebody who you love very much, who you like very much. Because of your attachment, because of your mental projection, you will see that that person, be it your parents, be it your husband, wife, brother, sister, whoever, you will see that person 100% good from its own side. And that person is not going to die. Kind of attitude, which is of course not true. Right? So therefore, ignorance means misconception of reality. Reality is that everything is interconnected, interrelated. But our misconception is we think they are not interrelated, they exist by themselves. So now let us pause for a moment and think. If you're able to change that attitude, whatever you do, if you're able to link it to what is happening within yourself, within other people, how they're all interconnected, interrelated, right? Then you will be very careful. For example, if you know the very intricate interrelation of your organ system, then you will be more careful what you're putting in your mouth. Because the tongue might enjoy it, but it might hurt your liver. As simple as that. Because they are all interconnected, supporting each other. So if you harm those links, those branches which is interconnected to you, which is supporting you, then you're hurting yourself. So therefore, hurting other people is basically hurting yourself. Harming the environment is harming yourself. As simple as that. As simple as that. Then if you want to go a little bit more deeper, then you will realize that how fast everything is changing. Everything is, as I said, everything is in a flux. There's hardly anything solid, concrete that we should, fall in love with, or it's like bubble, Really. And if you don't believe it, use some microscope and see. Watch your hand. Right? So through that way, we'll be able to understand the fragile nature, impermanent nature. The more you're able to understand that, the more you will be compelled to take care of it, because it's so fragile. Right? So misconception of reality. Reality is interdependent. Now, interdependent has three meanings. One is interdependent origination. When we say interdependent origination, interdependent, the first meaning refers to conditioned things. All conditioned things like people, houses, and things like that. They are interdependent. They are dependent originated because they are dependent on their causes and conditions. And from Prasangika Madhyamika, they are not only dependent on causes and conditions, the causes and conditions are also dependent on the result, the fruit. Like we call somebody as father, right? And the father is called father because of the son, because of the children. So in that way, father is dependent on the children also, right? So interdependent in that sense. That is an understanding of interdependent origination applicable to all the four philosophical tenet systems. The second meaning of interdependent origination is depending on the parts. For example, my body is dependent, the so-called my body is dependent on its parts. If I take away the part, there's nothing left called body. And my fingers, my hand, also dependent on the palm and the other fingers. If I take away all of this, there's nothing called fingers. So in this way, you will be able to understand that everything is designated to a conglomerate of things. Then the third, the deeper meaning of interdependent origination is that everything is designated by the mind. Everything is designated by mind. Some people, when you see some people, you feel very close. Some people you see, you feel a little bit unhappy, or you normally say, oh, vibration is not good, whatever it is. So anyway, this is your mental projection. This is what you see through your biased brain, right? Not the same person. Some will say very nice, some will say not nice. So that's why in the government also we have the ruling government and the opposition parties, you know. Right? So your mental projection. That means if you change your attitude a little bit and do not allow it colored by your emotions, and with a calm attitude, if you analyze things, things will change. The same person who seemed to be quite nasty will very soon appear to be quite friendly. And it happened in my own life. I've tested it. So therefore, it is important not to make any judgment right in the beginning, unless you have a thorough understanding about somebody. Don't judge. Just take time. Just take time to see, find the reality. Because what you see is the appearance, not the truth, not the reality. The problem with us is we go after appearance and we don't wait to see the reality. Whether it's your marriage, whether it's your shopping, you just do everything on the basis of appearance. If somebody who is very eloquent in speaking and nicely dressed and invites you for a cup of tea, at that very moment say, oh, this is a very nice person. Not knowing, you know, what is going on in the mind of that person, what that person is planning for you, you have no idea. Right? So therefore realize that there is a huge gap between appearance and reality. So as much as possible, try to go after reality, not to go after appearance. Appearances are deceptive. Appearances are deceptive. So bridge the gap, the disparity between appearance and reality through understanding of dependent origination, through multiplicity of causes and conditions. So therefore, now the main point is that the source of all our problems is ignorance. Therefore, education is important. And for us as Buddhists, education of the Buddha, which means basically the three trainings: education of morality, education on concentration, education on wisdom, or education through thinking, education through listening, education through meditation. It's extremely important, extremely important. Especially the Buddhist kind of education is really important because it really makes us flourish if we practice it. The Buddhist education is modeled not to get a specific job, but to make you a perfect human being so that you are competent to do any job. Once your frame of mind is holistic, sound, concentrated, patient, courageous, you can do any job. Of course, His Holiness the Dalai Lama is the inspiration always, right? He didn't go to any university, modern university, to study all the modern science and things like that, economics, politics, and all those things. But it may not be wrong to say that he is one of the best scientists, he is one of the best politician, I don't like this word, but a very good administrator, right? And he feels very comfortable discussing with everybody because all human, all activities, whether it's economic activity, political activity, scientific activity, whatever activities we do, what's important is to understand that all these activities are human activities. So first and foremost, you must be a true human being. True human being means somebody who has this value of love, of compassion, of concern and feeling for others, not egoistic. Once you have that, then you are a grounded person. You are a mature person, right? And because of that, you can easily handle all kinds of ups and downs and all difficult situations. Ordinarily, many of us, get all kinds of problems because we don't have the basic implements to deal with human life. We only have a piece of paper, right, from some university and things like that. So therefore, we need to understand that ignorance is the enemy number one. And from ignorance arises, of course, we do activities. Whatever activities you do it based on your own knowledge, right? So if you're an ignorant person, the actions that you take will be based on that ignorance. So you will end up doing negative actions, negative physical negative actions, verbal negative actions, mental negative actions. And when you do that action, you're involving your mind, which is the third link, consciousness. Whatever you're doing physically, verbally, especially mentally, that leaves an imprint on the consciousness. Because the prime mover is your mind. Mind is always there, it's involved, it's very sensitive, very impressionable. So therefore it leaves an imprint on the third links of dependent origination. Consciousness is normally divided into two: the consciousness at the time of the cause and consciousness at the time of the fruit. So here we are talking about the consciousness as the cause, at the time of the cause. So leaves an imprint on your consciousness. And then based on that, you take a rebirth and get your physical and mental qualities. Name means physical and form. Name and form. Form means physical and name means the other mental qualities like perception and so forth. Then after that, the six faculties, which means six senses. Then from there, the object, the faculties, when they come together, consciousness, they come together, that's called contact. At that time, it's simply contact, but there is no feeling of happiness and suffering, which comes in the next link, which is sensation. Now with the sensation, you develop this feeling of happiness, feeling of suffering, and if it's a feeling of happiness, then you develop craving, just like eating a chocolate, it's so delicious. Then I want more, that's craving. And then that craving leads to further. Craving is almost like now addiction, you get addicted to it, you like it very much, you like that chocolate very much. And then grasping means you will really go after it, you will hold it tightly, you will store more chocolate and things like that, grasping. So this craving and grasping nourishes that imprint that is left on the consciousness, right? And when it's fully empowered, when that imprint is fully empowered, then it's called existence, because now really ready to give that fruit in the next life. And then from existence comes the birth. When there is a birth, no need to explain. When there is a birth, then of course all kinds of sufferings. There is a grief, sickness, aging, distribution, not getting what you want, getting what what you don't want, right? The fear of death and so on. A huge mass of suffering, endless suffering. And if, as I said right at the beginning, by stopping birth, all this will cease, right? So therefore, let me tell you some of these examples which will make it a little bit more clear. First, the first link of dependent origination is drawn with a blind old man. Just a blind person is unable to see anything because he doesn't have that eye to see the object. So therefore he has to just grope in darkness, and he might fail anywhere. So therefore, like that, right from the beginning, when we are blind to the true state of things, not knowing the reality, as I mentioned earlier, then it's really like groping in the darkness. And you can fall and you can commit, you can break your cup or whatever, like that. Then second is depicted with a potter who had made many different sizes of pots. So just as these different sizes of pots are made by that potter, so similarly, depending upon our action, we take different physical bodies of different sizes. As you can clearly see, some people are tall, some are shorty, some have big head, some have well-balanced body, things like that. So it's because of the action that we do. The third link is depicted by a monkey climbing a tree. Now, in the case of the monkeys, they don't stay still in one place. They're very fond of jumping from one tree to another tree, from one housetop to another housetop, things like that. So our mind is also, that's why we normally say monkey mind, right? Our monkey mind also is not ready to stay on one object. The mind is fluctuating, just like a lightning, very difficult to uphold, very difficult to apprehend, very difficult to pacify. 100,000 things comes in your mind. That's why people say it's difficult for me to meditate. As and when you try to meditate, 100,000 things which you did not want to think will come in your mind. So monkey mind. Fourth is depicted with a boat or a ship. Just like a boat will be a kind of receptacle where you can put your things, your pots and other utensils and things like that. And also that boat can be used to take tourists and travelers across the ocean and things like that. So like that, when you have this basic body and perception and so forth, that becomes a receptacle for experiencing all kind of sufferings. And it acts as a basis to go to the next life also. Then fifth is depicted by a newly constructed house, one house with 5 rooms and so forth. But that is just an empty room, and the owner is yet to come in. So like that, in the next fifth link, the 5 sense faculties are there, they are present. Okay, so therefore the physical form is already there, but the consciousness is yet to come. So therefore it is really like an empty house. The sixth link is depicted by men and women in union, because at that time, by depending on the sense faculties, a new physical consciousness has developed, and therefore the object and the sense and the consciousness come together, and thereby you are able to perceive the tangible objects, whether it's soft or harsh and things like that. But it will not induce happiness and suffering. It's called contact. The seventh is feeling, which is depicted by a person whose eye has been pierced by an arrow. Okay. When that the consciousness that we are talking about is more empowered, and then as and you come into contact with soft and harsh objects, that will induce happiness or suffering. right? And the eighth is craving, which is depicted by a person drinking wine. Based on the seven link, which is feeling, the craving develops. And then you get kind of obsessed with it, and you don't want to relinquish that obsession. So that is craving. And the ninth is grasping. It is depicted sometimes with a person carrying a basket and putting fruits into it. Sometimes the painting shows a monkey collecting fruits. So whichever painting it is, but the meaning is that the craving has now further strengthened, and so you are now actually going forward to own those objects of your craving. The 10th is depicted by a pregnant woman, or sometimes a nest where there is a lot of eggs. When the consciousness, the imprint that is left on the consciousness, when that is empowered by craving and grasping, and then the action that we have accumulated in the past becomes empowered and is ready to take birth in the future lives. Okay, and then 11th is birth, which is depicted by a woman giving birth to a child. So that means you transfer from the intermediate state and you actually take the birth. And the 12th is aging and death, which is depicted by a painting of dead body being carried by people. So things like that. So these are a little bit explanations of the 12 links of dependent origination. And then that whole picture is tightly held by the two hands and the two legs and the mouth of that so-called Lord of Death. So there is really no actual spirit who is there to catch you like that, but that so-called Lord of Death actually refers to our ordinary death, because our ordinary death is the honor, is the Lord, because nobody can escape that death, right? As is clearly said in Aryadeva's 400 verses, saying that the one who is the Lord of all the three realms. So death is the Lord of all the three realms. Wherever you are born, you are subject to death. And there's nobody who can control death. And this being the case, that the death is imminent, it's going to come soon, still, if you don't make any preparation and sleep, and what is more unsuitable than this? So that is what is said by Aryadeva in his 400 verses. Okay. So the term might have come to an end. Oh, sorry, already. So we stop here, but I will, the next session will be the last session. Okay. So I don't want to unnecessarily linger for a long time. Okay, thank you.
So thank you so much, Geshe. We'll have the first question from Pasang La. Yeah, Pasang La, I've sent you a mute request. Yeah.
Just delay, Geshe, just delay to everyone.
Yeah.
So it's a blessing always to attend the Geshe teaching. And yeah, I have a question. Because at the beginning, Geshe, you said that as a human being, I mean, good human being, we have to appreciate others' happiness. And that's true. And then exactly, but I see that among lay people, including myself, like I appreciate happiness among our intimate friends and families. And if you see, I mean, if I see the happy, I mean, for example, I try to avoid that character, but many people, they appreciate when their family and friends are happy. But if others, for example, the other opinion people, especially in the political points of view, between the presidents or between the former and present Sikong, or due to that, lots of conflicts happen in the community, and people, I mean, they know that to be kind and to appreciate kindness for others is good, but they hardly practice it. So can you please advise from the, if the leaders, they show a right way of happiness and keeping a like respect for each others among the society, then we have a very peaceful community under the grace of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So can you please advise that? And what do you think that my opinion, like I see that, but maybe I'm wrong. And so I'm really sad. And now I'm a little bit relaxed that we have a government which started. Really, I'm paining from my heart because we are one.
Yeah.
We are one Tibetan. We have one goal. And our campaign is to fight against the human rights tortured under the brutal communist Chinese government. Communist Chinese government, not the Chinese lay people. Even the Chinese lay people are equally suffering as we, worse than we Tibetans, because I mean, some of them, especially 2011, the Nobel Peace Laureate, he could not go and receive his own Nobel Peace Prize, although he's a Chinese himself. I mean, so that's why, can you please advise from the top of us, I mean, in our community, from the Sikong, former or the present, so that they can lead, and the political leaders, because if I see that many of the lay people now, if they're on net, they'll be talking about something like, I don't know, they said that it's a democracy, but they speak out whatever that comes in their tongues, you know, without thinking twice. So please help me to advise this for the community, for the benefit of the community, for the, I mean, leading a peaceful community. And you know, like, oh, really, I'm really sad sometimes, you know.
The two things. One, what we should and what we can is different. What we should is that we should all become Buddha. But that's not possible. I mean, instantaneously, it's not possible. It'll take long time. So similarly, what we should be able to do is we should all be nice and live harmoniously, compassionate. That is our desired goal. But that being your desired goal doesn't mean that you will reach that goal tonight or tomorrow and suddenly, boom, there is enlightenment, there is, you know, harmony everywhere, everybody's mind change, you know, with one tick of, you know, clock and things like that. That's not possible. So we need to be realistic. We need to be realistic. What is important is that at the end of the day, as you have already pointed out, at the end of the day, the real solution is respecting each other, listening to each other, not only talking about what you believe, to whom you trust, not only talking about that all the time, right? There are occasions when you need to say things, but there are many occasions when, as I said, you need to remain silent. And then what is really important is listen to other people's opinion. And for now the problem, as I said, there's why right in the beginning it talks, the problem arises from ignorance. So the problems that we are confronting also arises from ignorance. Ignorance basically related to the mind oneself. This is what I believe, therefore this must be right. That's the problem, you see. And then you don't want to like honestly settle down, consulting the constitution, things like that, and you just interpret it and saying that this is in accordance with the constitution, you know, making your own like interpretations. Then it's difficult. It's difficult. So therefore, what I can say right now is that even when the Buddha was there, there's so many problems there. But this does not mean to say that the Buddha did not bring peace to many people. Buddha brought many peace to many people. So not only that time, but also today, because of Buddha's teaching, many people are getting benefit. So these people are contributing much to the overall stability of the society. So few people will always be there. You call them politicians or whatever you call them, narrow-mindedness or whatever you call them, there are some people will be there. And especially when you see these people a little bit brazen, these people are not hesitant to come out, on the Facebook. So they're always taking like pros and cons, this one is right, that one is wrong, then both the parties saying nasty things about each other. Then people get the impression now the whole society is like hopeless, but that is not true. The silent majority are, whether it's Tibetans or any other people of any other country, they are very good people. They want peace, they want happiness. So that we need to believe. Otherwise, if you just see this, fightings or whatever, then you might think it's hopeless. But that's not true. That's why I give you the example. For example, in a big city like New Delhi, in one day, in terms of killing, there may be like 50, 60 in a day. When I say Delhi, it's a population of, I think, 20 million. Then there are like millions of parents who are showing love and compassion to their children. The millions of nurses and doctors who are taking care of the sick people, you see. So the majority of the people everywhere, not only in India, everywhere, they're good people, they're kind people, compassionate people, you see. So that is unfortunately not very well represented on the media platform. So therefore we think that the world is hopeless, or Tibetan society is hopeless, things like that. So therefore we should, on our side, be honest, impartial. One has to first be the person to take that step, right? And then don't just keep on talking about what you believe, who is right, who is wrong, not just that. Of course, when you vote, then you have the right to choose the right person. When there is a need, then of course you can say. Otherwise, you don't pay too much attention to this kind of meaningless talking to each other. So therefore, we need to have a larger perspective. Because at the end of the day, whatever is happening in the world, for example, even if there is a bombing, not only the people fighting, but bombing and killing, even at that time, majority of the people will never say that now compassion is useless. They'll still look after their children and things like that, right? So, I mean, we are ordinary people. Sometimes you might get affected, sometimes you might get upset. But what is important is your getting upset is not the solution. That we need to understand. So the first lesson of the, your practice is that you should, whatever is happening, you should remain calm. If there's a solution, help provide that solution. If there's a none, then at least you maintain your calmness. I think that is perhaps the way. Yeah.
So, thank you. We'll have Natasha now. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Geshe. We have a few questions. I'll ask some of them if we have time. The first question is from Dinara. She says, I did not understand well how does it happen, how in the 10th link of dependent origination, how the birth in Bardo takes place, and does ignorance affect the process of birth in Bardo, and how does it affect this process?
Yeah, the main propeller, the big boss is ignorance. It's the ignorance which made you do the action, and that left an imprint on the consciousness, which is empowered by craving and grasping, and which in turn empowered the 10th existence. So it's all primarily come from ignorance. If there's no ignorance, you will not engage into wrong action. If there's no ignorance, you will not develop craving. You will not develop grasping. These are kind of attachment, which will not there. So basically saying that all contaminated actions and negative emotions come because of ignorance. Okay.
Mhm. The next question is, what is the difference between pain and anger?
Hmm?
What is the difference between pain and anger?
Anger,
Yes.
pain. You may, for example, you may have pain, but you may not be angry. That's quite simple. You may have pain. There are many people who suffer pain, but they are not angry. There are some people who may be very angry, but not necessarily they have any pain. It's because of their wrong mental attitude they get angry, right? So they're totally different thing.
Thank you. And the next question is about the empowerments and uh, initiations. The question is, when you receive an empowerment, what is the best way to do to concentrate on just one practice until you achieve some results, or you can kind of alternate different practices?
As I said, the empowerment or initiation, this is basically same meaning, but to explain it is easier to use this word empowerment because the word itself says that you empowered, you are given the permission to do something. Because we are supposed to be undertaking the tantric practice, which is said to be secret practice. So therefore, it is highly, highly essential that you receive the permission to do certain practices from a qualified teacher. So there is the meaning of empowerment. So once you are given the permission, that means you are given the permission to do certain practice, be it Kala Chakra, be it Guha Samaja, whatever, right? So therefore, there are many ways. One is just to receive empowerment as a blessing, because you may not be still, you may still not be having that capacity to go into the deeper practices. So you just receive the blessing. And in that case, what is really important is faith in the tantric teaching or faith in the teacher, right? If it is possible, then you should have some understanding of the meaning of renunciation, bodhicitta, and wisdom, understanding emptiness. If not, at least some faith to the teacher and the teaching, so that it will also, that itself will also have some positive imprint. Okay. But then if you are a serious practitioner, then the very reason of empowerment is not just pretending that you receive some blessing, but the real blessing will come only when you practice, right? So therefore, you need to know what to be visualized, depending upon which tantric classes you receive that empowerment, right? So therefore, normally, unfortunately, His Holiness himself once told somewhere, I remember that very well. His Holiness said that in the very beginning, or long before, when a qualified master gives him tantric empowerment, then after the tantric empowerment, he guides the student what to practice. And then the student recalls or remembers those practices step by step and does the practice. There is no sadhana to recite. Okay. Then gradually, with the time of degeneration, perhaps, whatever the teacher has taught, the student is unable to remember. So they make a note of what the teacher has instructed. It may be a short note in the beginning. So from that short note, the student is able to remember what has been instructed. And based on that short note, he does the practice. And as time went on, that short note is also very vague, not very clear. So they want more elaborate. So there's a more lengthier, longer sadhana, longer writing. So these days, to undertaking a particular tantric commitment means not being able to recite that long sadhana. So even if you're able to recite that long sadhana, you have no clue, no idea what you're reading, what is there in the sadhana. So therefore, what is really important is not just reading, but understand the meaning, especially the cultivation of bodhicitta, and especially understanding of shunyata, through whose practice you dissolve your psychophysical aggregate into that state of emptiness, meaning that now you no more think about your ordinary psychophysical body. And then from that state of emptiness, you imagine yourself arising into the form of that particular deity, Samaja or Avalokiteshvara or the Kalachakra or whatever. So that is the process. So those things that is explained in the sadhana or the main Kalachakra text or Samaja text, we should know those and practice them. So
Sorry.
I did not answer fully. So therefore, you should really know the essential points of all the sadhanas. Like bodhicitta is necessary in all the sadhanas. Understanding shunyata is necessary in all the sadhanas. Visualizing oneself transforming into a deity is necessary in all the sadhanas. Then there may be different representations of body, color of the body and the hand gestures and things like that, right? And then there are many other important features that you should know. Okay, so what is really important is you should have some understanding with one proper sadhana, and then others right now, if you don't have time, then gradually you should study them. Or that's one way. Another way is don't, as the text is normally said, don't be brave in receiving, the empowerment, and don't be timid in undertaking the practice. So sometimes we are very brave in receiving the empowerment, and then after having received the empowerment, we are very timid, right, to do the practice. We are unable to do the practice. So that should not be there.
Thank you, Geshe-la. And the last question. Why does Yamantaka have an eye of wisdom?
Eye of wisdom, because Yamantaka is said to be, of course, all these tantric deities are for cultivation, bodhicitta, removing of ignorance, cultivation of wisdom, understanding emptiness, and so forth. But Yamantaka is, Yamantaka basically means the opposing force against the Lord of Death, right? The Lord of Death, basically the source of Lord of Death is, of course, ignorance. So therefore, especially in the case of practitioner in the beginning stage, practice of visualization of Yamantaka is encouraged. So that eye symbolizes the importance of cultivation of wisdom. And sometimes we say Yamantaka is nothing but the wrathful aspect of Manjushri. Okay, and Manjushri, of course, is a deity of wisdom. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thanks so much. Shirley, you can go on.
Pranam Geshe-la. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. 2 days ago, I suddenly read a article on Google that if you take a particular herbs, which I used to know as kind of intoxicants, that if you take it, then you will not have anxiety and depression for few years. Okay, and it will not have any kind of effects on your health. So as you said, there are a lot of junk news on the net. So I used to ask here and there to few of my friends, and some of them said okay, it's kind of brain enhancer, and meditators also take it for the meditation purpose. Okay, which I have no previous knowledge like that. And one of them said, okay, yeah, it has no bad effects on your health. So after that, I faced some kind of dilemma, or I know but there's some regulation where it is mentioned that you shouldn't take intoxicants. And here I know these things I used to know as kind of drugs. And it is written as an article that if you take it, you don't have anxiety. And a lot of, even including me, I'm facing also sometimes anxiety. I try not to have it. Then I started facing kind of dilemma or thinking about it, why someone would not take it, though it's a kind of intoxicants. So it's kind of ethical dilemma, like what to do. And I'm really trying to get it, what should do
in the ancient Indian tradition, there's so much talk about the sadhus using soma, which is a hallucinating factor, and by taking that, they're getting different visions and things like that.
Huh.
But from the Buddhist viewpoint,
Yeah.
is that we are already hallucinated by negative emotions.
Yeah.
So we don't need any more additional hallucinating drugs or
No, if
substances.
it's not
Number one,
because
listen to me. Number one, listen to me. Number one. Number two, you can dull your senses by some of these drugs and things like that. And when you dull your senses, you have less anxiety and things like, for example, the animals, because their senses are dull, they don't have depression and anxiety as human beings have. So it's primarily simply dulling the senses. When you dull your senses, not only you don't have the anxiety and depression, things like that, but you will also not have the good part also. So that is the risk, that is the danger. So therefore, at least what I know from the Buddhist teaching is the only way to remove the mental related problems like anxiety and so forth is training the mind itself. And then also providing certain physical facilities which will not dull your senses. So that is the most important thing, right?
okay. I understand. Okay, it will dull your senses. That was not mentioned in there. So
Yeah.
I understand. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
You can
Geshe-la.
mute me.
Thank you, Shoili. Yeah, I can mute you, dear. Jackie, you can go ahead, please.
Hello, I'm trying to learn one single pointed concentration. Can you focus on the breath instead of a Buddha image? Because I have issues focusing on images because my
Yeah, it's good.
eyes go.
Yeah,
Is that
it's good.
okay?
It's
Just
good.
to stick with the breath? Okay.
It's good because especially to settle your mind, watching the breath is very important, very good. Because your breath is your remote control to your brain. Okay, your breath is your remote control to your brain. So if you are able to control your breath, you're also able to control your brain to that extent. So especially in the beginning stage, it's very useful because that will, just by watching the breath, you will be able to stop arisal of many discursive thoughts. And it is something that is related to your body, so you can do that visualization anywhere.
Thank
Okay.
you. I also had one quick question. My hair is starting to fall out. And I remember you told a cute story of a yak who was scared to lose his horsetail hair. I was hoping I couldn't find the story. Was there, I figured it would make me happy. Could you, about how yaks don't like to lose their hair on their tails? Never mind.
No,
Sorry.
there are two stories I remember. One, as it's explained in the Great Stages of the Path, Lamrim Chemo, that just like the yaks, they will be very careful not to even lose few strings of hair from their tail. They will try to guard it. Likewise, we should also guard our vows. There's the story. I know another yak story, which is story for the kids, not relevant to your question. There's a story. I wanted to tell you this story so that we'll all smile and laugh and end the session. So there's a story of a very interesting story of Tibetan story, story of yak. So actually, the yak did not have that hair, the long hair, as yaks have now. The story says yak went from India to Tibet. And the story is just a story. The story says the buffaloes have long hairs. So one day the yak, who did not have hair at that time, he said, I want to go to Tibet. Tibet is a very cold country. Please borrow me your jacket. So the buffalo, lend its hair, the coat. And then yak went to Tibet, and he was able to enjoy the delicious Tibetan salt. and he decided not to come back. So still you see so many yaks in Tibet, not in India. And now if you look at buffalo, you will very often find the buffaloes are still like looking up in the space and craning their nose, which is basically saying, when is the yak going to come back? You know? Okay, that's to be story. Okay, I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Geshe Lhakdor, so especially for this beautiful story that reminded me personally of my childhood when we came across the story in our third grade textbook. Thank you so much, Geshe Lhakdor, for your teachings. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And the more we think about this being the second last session, the more we feel like we cannot let it go. So we'll have more conversation on that later on. But for now, thank you so much, Geshe Lhakdor. Your teachings are always very enlightening, very helpful. Thank you so much. And maybe please now request you to lead the prayers. Thank you.
Omane peme hong gewandi yurdo da chere se wa tu pyo nen do wa chik yama de ba te sa lang go ba ra sho. Thank you.